Hey everyone. I was watching the Young Turks yesterday. I'll tell you, the Young Turks just do not get it. So I'm watching, and they're talking about how they have to take back the Democratic Party and how they've got to get a real progressive if they want to win elections. And they think that they need Elizabeth Warren, they need Bernie Sanders, they think Keith Ellison should be the head of the DNC. This shows you how out of touch that the Young Turks are, and many of the progressives who follow them. I think that these people must only associate with people who think, talk, act, and believe like themselves. They really need to take a trip out through Middle America and talk to some Americans in Middle America and see what they think. Because you cannot win general elections using the electoral college system that we have if you try to push the type of progressivism that they're selling. It just doesn't sell in Middle America, and they just don't understand that. Now, I really hope they do run Elizabeth Warren in 2020. Elizabeth Warren is an idiot. Old Pocahontas will get her ass smoked. If Donald Trump chooses to run for a second term, then he'll beat her handily, worse than he beat Hillary. The same is true with Bernie Sanders. I know you progressives love Bernie, even though he sold you out. And you always show these polls where you had head-to-head matchups between Bernie and Trump. And you say, well, Bernie would have won by 10 or 15 points. Bullshit. Okay? Bernie and Hillary signed a non-aggression pact. There were certain things that neither of them wanted to bring up about each other for the good of themselves and for the party. The thing that concerned Bernie most are these videos of him in the 60s marching down the streets with the Communist Party, holding court with communist leaders, supporting and advocating communism. I've seen these videos. Most of the people in the country have not. So, if those videos ever come to light, which they would if he were running in a general election, Bernie Sanders would be toast. The Democratic Party knows that. The Democratic donors know that. Of course, Hillary had a lot of skeletons in her closet that she didn't want brought out, such as the Clinton Foundation and various other scandals that Bernie Sanders could have used to defeat Hillary. But with the non-aggression pact that they signed, they both protected each other's dirty little secrets. In a general election, that wouldn't happen. Let's put it that way. Plus, Bernie Sanders would be 78. I believe that Trump, if he runs in 4 years and he's facing off against Sanders, that it will be a 48, 49 state landslide. And I know a lot of you progressives don't believe that, but that's okay. So, what is it that the progressives seem to be selling? What is this whole progressive movement really about? Well, I don't know what they think in their own minds, but what those of us who live in Middle America, in other words, those of us who do not live on the East Coast or West Coast or in one of the big cities like Philadelphia or Chicago, what the rest of us in Middle America see in the progressive movement is that you really have three main things that you want to jam down our throats. The first is your environmental extremism. You know, for those of us who've been on this planet for about 40 or 50 years, let me tell you a little story. I grew up in the 1960s. I remember one day, I believe I was in second or third grade, I went to school that day, and someone had brought in a magazine. I believe it was Time magazine. And on the cover was this huge glacier covering all of North America. From, say, Wyoming, Colorado, all the way eastward. And the entire thing was covered by a gigantic glacier, 1,000-foot tall glacier. And it was the doom and gloom end of the world scenario that these climate scientists were selling back then. I remember kids literally being brought to tears. It terrified us. I remember going home and telling my mom, "Mom, we're all going to die. A big glacier is going to just roll over us and crush us all. We're all going to die." And my mom said, "No, that's not going to happen. Thousands of years, maybe something like that will happen because this planet's always been changing." And in fact, my mom explained to me that every roughly 5,000 to 6,000 years, we have a mini ice age in North America. And about every 11,000 years, we have a real ice age. And it does have a major effect. It's something that a few thousand years down the road, some people are going to have to deal with. But she told me that I had nothing to worry about, that everything was going to be fine, and that it would never happen in my lifetime. And she made me feel better, and I was okay. Then, the next big environmental wacko scare we got from the peer-reviewed scientist was the ozone scare. That's right, the ozone layer is disappearing. It's evaporating. It's being burned up because of our cars and our lawnmowers and our chainsaws and our motorcycles. That's right. We're going to eliminate the ozone layer, and when it's all gone, we're all going to be roasted from radiation by the sun. Ah! This is what we got. And for quite a few years, it was a big issue and was argued back and forth. Well, this was back in the 80s, I believe. And of course, the ozone is fine. It's doing just fine. We haven't been radiated to death, and we're all doing just fine. So we didn't have to worry about that either. Then, of course, we get global warming. That's right. Here comes Al Gore with his whole pitch and all his peer-reviewed scientists telling us about this horrible global warming that was happening. Okay? And he's telling us that the coastlines are going to disappear and all these horrible things are going to happen. None of them did. So then, when that didn't work, they had to try climate change. Well, guess what? The climate on this planet has always been in a state of flux, and it always will. And there's probably nothing we can do to stop it. It's been going on long before we started using fossil fuels. So, it's this environmental extremism, which is almost like a religious cult to the progressives. And they want to jam this shit down our throat. But for those of us who've lived through decade after decade after decade of peer-reviewed scientists predicting all sorts of climate Armageddon, we're just not buying it. Wintertime, where I live in Ohio, is still cold. Summertime is still hot. And spring and fall are still transitional. Yes, I've noticed some slight changes in the climate, but it's always in a state of flux. It's a cycle. And the fact of the matter is, in about 4,000 or 5,000 years, we'll have a mini ice age, and then 5,000 or 6,000 years after that, we'll probably have another more serious ice age. And in a few 100 billion years, the sun is going to fry this planet like an egg. By then, we'll probably be off the planet, or probably long before then, mankind will have destroyed itself with some sort of weapon. So, it's really hard to get people in Middle America to swallow this bullshit. What Middle America is most concerned with is having jobs, having a secure country, so that we don't look like what's happening in Europe. Those are the types of things that people really vote on. So, to you progressives, if you actually want to get people to take you seriously, stop letting yourselves be sucked into the bullshit lies of climate change. Yes, we all want to protect the environment. We don't want to pollute the lakes and the oceans and the rivers and streams. We don't want to pollute the soils and the air. We don't want any of that. Of course, we want to try to have a clean environment. but there is a rational, common sense approach to dealing with it. When you turn it into a religion and you go into this environmental extremism, you simply turn off a lot of people. Now, maybe this stuff sells in the progressive community and on the East and West Coast, but in Middle America, and that's where you have to win some states in Middle America in our system if you want to win national elections. You can't just win California, the West Coast, the East Coast, and a few of the big cities. You've got to be able to appeal to Middle America. And this progressive environmental extremism just doesn't sell in Middle America for the reasons I just explained. Now, the Democratic Party and the big Democratic donors, they know this, okay? And that's why they're going to fight you every inch of the way as you try to move the Democratic Party and take over the Democratic Party with more progressive ideals. They're going to fight you every step of the way, and you will probably lose. If you want to beat them, you are actually going to have to beat them. And that's nearly impossible to do because the Democrats, unlike the Republicans, where Donald Trump was able to go out there and win the nomination, he won. And he's a different type of Republican. I don't even think him as a Republican. He's more of a populist nationalist. The Republicans certainly don't like him, not the establishment. But the Democrats have the superdelegate system where they have 575 superdelegates, which are going to be awarded to the establishment character. That's how they will make absolutely damn sure that one of the far left type progressives will never get that nomination. So if you're really a hardcore progressive, then you might want to go over to the Green Party. You know, the party that's primary objective and primary driving force is the environmental movement that gets about 1% if they're lucky. I don't even think Jill Stein even got 1 million votes. So it's self-defeating. And you at the Young Turks and the progressives who follow the Young Turks just don't get it. The next issue that you put a lot of effort into is the single-payer healthcare system. Now, for those of us, again, who've been around this world for a little bit longer than some of you young progressives out there, we remember before the Nixon administration destroyed the healthcare system by creating the HMOs and corporatizing our healthcare system. We remember when the healthcare system was pretty damn good. I remember when my parents used to take me and my sister to the doctor, my mom would just simply whip out $3 or $4 out of her pocket and pay the copay. If you just had a broken arm or a broken ankle or all the types of injuries that we would get as kids, those were literally 15, 20, 30 bucks pay out of pocket. The costs were very low. And really your insurance only really was there to cover major operations and things and such. And the cost of prescriptions and the cost of general medical treatment was very affordable. And my parents weren't rich. They were blue-collar, 9-to-5 working, type people. So we used to have a pretty good healthcare system here. We've always had an issue with getting certain people insured who had pre-existing conditions or who were born with serious medical issues. And most libertarian, conservative, Republicans, whatever you want to call us on the so-called right, we understand that we need to take care of those people. And I don't think you'll find too many people on the so-called right who say, no, too bad for those people who have serious medical issues. I guess they're just screwed. No, that's not how we think at all. And we do think that we need to have a safety net or some system to take care of those people who are born with unfortunate medical conditions. It's not their fault. And we do have to look after those people, that's for sure. But the single-payer system is, you're not going to be able to sell that to Middle America. It sounds too much like socialism. And in case you haven't figured it out, you folks at Young Turks, Middle America is just not interested in socialism or communism or any of the other isms that you're trying to sell that come from the far left ideologies. It's just not going to work. That's why you're going to lose in 4 years and keep losing. Now, here's another thing. Your entire campaign in the past, I've noticed in the past 3-4 election cycles, has a tendency to use this identity politics. You try to win the political arguments by simply accusing your opponent, usually on the right, of being a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, this, that, and the other thing. For instance, just because many of us believe that you should have a picture ID and you should be registered to vote, we're racists. And when you look at middle America and you say, what, you think people should have to have a picture ID to vote? You're a racist. You have to understand how that makes us feel. We just look at you and we just think you're a bunch of a-holes because it has nothing to do with race. We think all people who vote should have to have a picture ID regardless of what your race, religion, creed, color, whatever. We don't really care. We just want to make sure that we don't have people voting 19 times. Okay? And just about everyone has a picture ID. And even if you don't have a driver's license or a state ID or something like that, maybe when you register to vote, if you don't have a picture ID, you can apply for a state ID with a picture. So we can make sure that you only vote once and we know who you are and we can identify you. That's not racism. That's just common sense. But you like to ram this shit down our throats and we don't like it. And as far as the homosexuality and stuff like that, you talk to the average person who's, say, on the right. I'm more of a libertarian or classic liberal, like a James Madison or a Thomas Jefferson or something like that. We really don't give a shit who you fuck, okay? We don't care who you fuck, when you fuck them, or how you fuck them, okay? We really don't care. But what we don't want is for you to ram this shit down our throat and force us to accept it as behavior that we would consider fairly normal. You know, you got to understand, for the majority of people, particularly those in middle America, we have these sort of traditional values that a lot of you progressives don't share, and that's okay. We're tolerant. We can tolerate that if you want to have sex with someone of the same sex, or if you want to have sex with a fucking sea urchin. We don't care. But don't try to ram it down our throat and force us to accept it as a type of behavior that we should think is just perfectly fine. In fact, let's go ahead and teach that in the schools. Let's tell our kids it's okay. Let's do all that. You see, we have a problem with that. We don't want that kind of shit in the schools being taught to kids. I want my kids being taught how to read, how to write, how to do arithmetic, how to do science. I definitely want them to learn some history. What I don't want them doing in the schools is being taught all this kind of social bullshit that should be left up to the parents to decide. So forgive us if we have traditional feelings about how we see the country, how we see the world, and how we see our lives, and what type of people we want to hang out with. I have gay friends. I have no problem with my gay friends. I mean, they do what they do. I could care less. And to be honest, most of my gay friends, some of which are fairly conservative, they mind their own business. And they don't try to ram it down my throat. And that's cool. I'm good with all that. And so are most people on the right. But when you sit there and you look at the entire middle of the country, and you take your radical leftist agenda, and you try to make those of us in middle America look like idiots or fools or bigots or racists or homophobes because we don't share your vision of everything that you believe in, suddenly we're like subhuman or something to you. That turns people off, in case you didn't know that, and it doesn't help you get votes, and it doesn't help you win elections. So these are just some of the things that I noticed from you at the Young Turks, and I have to tell you, people, I mean, you better understand something. The Democratic Party establishment and the donors know exactly what I'm telling you. You may not know it, but they know it. And again, with the system that they have in the Democratic Party, good luck. Good luck defeating them. And you sure as hell aren't going to defeat them with Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. It's not going to happen. Because they know that they can't win elections. They can't win elections now. And they're blaming, quite honestly, a lot of you on the far left, progressives, for costing them the election. They believe that you didn't come out and support Hillary. And I don't blame you. I wouldn't have voted for the bitch either. Okay? Not even so much because of her ideologies. It's her character. Her character's horrible because she's basically a neocon. She's George Bush in a pantsuit. Okay? With a pee bag. Now, Having said that, I know a lot of you progressives who may be watching this video are pretty pissed off right now. You don't like what I'm telling you. That's okay. That's what this is all about. The free exchange of ideas. You can give me thumbs down. You can give me nasty comments. That's okay. I'm a big boy and I can handle all that. I've debated and discussed with many of my liberal and progressive friends about these issues. And it's been my experience over the years that as you get older and get more life experience and more wisdom, you have a tendency to change your views. And many of you will change your views, and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. One day, you'll wake up and realize that the environmental extremism that you've been bought into is a fucking hoax. Okay? You'll realize that. One day, you'll realize that if you want to win national elections, in our system, which is the electoral college system, which is a great system. It's a very, very good system. It's way better than the popular vote. And that's why our founding fathers created the system. I did a video on it a few weeks back, so you may want to view that video. And of course, Hillary and the Democrats knew in this past election that they were competing in a contest which is decided by the electoral vote. They knew exactly what the game was and what they had to do to win, just like Donald Trump and the Republicans knew. That's why they ran the campaign the way they did. And they were successful. They won and they defeated Hillary and the Democrats. Not just in the presidency, but they also were supposed to lose the Senate. They did not. They held on. They also picked up some governorships. They also picked up some state houses. They're beating you pretty badly over the last several election cycles. And the reason is because you progressives don't realize what middle America sees when they look at these videos and look at these clips on TV and they see the way that you people are behaving. Generally, when we have an election, you have a winner and a loser. And when your side loses, as our side did in the last two elections, we accept. When Obama won two elections, I said, hey, he won. We ran two bad candidates. John McCain was a loser and Mitt Romney was a loser. I didn't like either of those guys and did not vote for either of them. And that's a lot of the reason why we lost. I accepted it though. Barack Obama is the president. I don't particularly like his views. I don't know the man personally, so I can't attest to his character or whether he's a likable person or what have you. I just didn't like a lot of his policies. Never have. And I don't think he was very successful. And I think that's a lot of the reason, again, why Trump won. It was kind of a referendum on Obama. Okay, so anyway, that's just kind of how I view the situation. When I watch the Young Turks, I just get the impression they just do not understand it. So I would suggest to you, Young Turks, and some of you progressives, if you really want to get involved in the politics and you actually want to succeed, you need to start talking to people who don't think like you. Now that requires tolerance. Okay, it requires tolerance, which you don't seem to have very much of. And we can see that by the way you're reacting to the election. You lost. Get over it. The thing to do now is to go back to work and maybe try to win in 4 years, or maybe try to win some seats in the midterm elections. What you're doing by going out in the streets and showing your asses is you're allowing middle America, again, to look at you and go, look at those people. They're crazy. They're nuts. Whining little brats, spoiled brats, don't understand how our system works. Look at the Middle East. What happens in the Middle East? Why are they always in a constant state of war? It's because they are not a civil society. They cannot have a democratic form of government because they will not accept, they have no tolerance, and they will not accept any type of civil society. They do not have a civil society, which is mandatory, a mandatory requirement if you want to have a democratic system. What happens in the Middle East is when one side loses, they say, fuck it, we aren't going to accept these results, we're going to war. And that's what you, social justice warriors, are now demonstrating that you believe as well. You don't like the outcome, oh, we're going to revolt. You see, you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting the country as well. Because remember, the same thing you're doing can be done back to you. So, you need to keep these things in mind. And all you progressives and all you folks over at the Young Turks need to reevaluate your situation. And you've got much bigger problems right now than the alt-right or the conservatives or the libertarians. Your party is in shambles, and it has a lot to do with you. Your party, as I said before, your party big shots establishment and the big donors and the people who really understand these things and understand what you have to do to win general elections know that they cannot win general elections when the if they allow a progressive person like a Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders to represent them on the Democratic ticket. They will get slammed. They will get smeared, wiped out. And this country in middle America is really different than you folks who live on the coast or maybe in some of the big cities on the East Coast. And you're not going to win elections, which is fantastic, for me. So you're not going to win elections by trying to ram this progressive value system down the throats of middle America. It just simply isn't going to fly. So give that some thought. Go ahead, and if you want, you can give me some thumbs down. I don't care. You can make nasty comments. That's fine. But anyway, I appreciate you watching the video. Feel free to share it with your friends on social media. And subscribe to my channel. Maybe every now and then I'll say something you like. You know, just because I say things that you don't like doesn't mean I'm wrong. So a little self-introspection might do you some good. And you folks at the Young Turks, as I said, I watch you from time to time. You just don't get it. And if you want to take back your party with progressives, you're going to have to defeat them like Donald Trump did with the Republicans. They didn't give him the nomination. He had to earn it. He had to win it. And that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to beat the establishment just like he did. Like I say, the only problem that you have in the Democratic Party is that super rigged system that they have with the super delegates. And so they also have the media on their side, the big donors. It's much tougher to defeat the establishment on the Democratic side than it is on the Republican side. Good luck to you doing that. And anyway, I'll get back to you tomorrow probably. I have another video. I want to talk a little bit more about the Democratic Party and some of the things I've been observing. And like I say, you may not like some of the things that I'm telling you, but it wouldn't hurt you to at least take in consideration some of the things I'm saying. I'm 53 years old. I have seen a lot of elections. I've studied them carefully. And I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And I've spent most of my life here in Middle America. I live in Southern Ohio. And so you may want to take some of this to heart, or you can totally ignore it and keep on losing. It's totally up to you. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your day. See y'all.